So Vande Bharat, the initiative launched by the government for repatriation of flights, has now been opened up for the private carriers as well. Good morning, this is Nayanthara Rai working from home in New Delhi, and to talk about Vande Bharat and what it means for the airlines and for all of you that are looking to bring back your loved ones to India, I'm being joined by a very special guest, the top boss at SpiceJet, Ajay Singh. Mr. Singh, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on ET Now. We got to know about the fact that private carriers could be allowed just yesterday. Can you tell us how much of the skies, the international skies, has been opened up for private airlines like SpiceJet?
Well, Nantara, international skies have not been opened up in the sense that there are no scheduled flights happening. But what has been opened up is private sector participation in the Vande Bharat scheme, like you said, as also charter flights that we are now allowed to do to repatriate Indians stuck in different parts of the world. So I think that's a good step by the government, because clearly the numbers of our citizens that are trying to come back to India is quite large. And this could not have been done by one airline alone. I think it's also important that all of us, private airlines, are also national carriers. We all carry the national flag. And we were looking forward to an opportunity to participate in this whole process of repatriating Indians back to our country.
So you're saying the scheduling is going to be decided by the government. Mr. Ajay Singh, will the pricing also be decided by the government? Because when Vande Bharat was only open for Air India, what we did see is the government having a flat rate. For example, for the economy class ticket from the Gulf, it was 13,000 rupees and 1 lakh rupees from any of the cities in the United States. Do you have to follow the same pricing? Is the government deciding the pricing?
Yes, as far as Vande Bharat itself is concerned, the government is deciding the pricing. As you know, they had adopted this policy, which appeared to us to be that when Air India was flying to the Gulf, they were, in a sense, subsidizing flights. And they were making up the money by flying to Europe and the US, where the fares were much higher than the average fares they would normally get. So yes, to the extent that private carriers participate in Vande Bharat directly, the fares will be determined by government. But in terms of charter flights that we are all allowed to operate, these are flights which are typically paid for by companies and by organizations in different parts of the world. Those flights, there is no pricing, limit that has been set by the government of India.
So, when was Vande Bharat allowed? And Mr. Ajay Singh, can you give us an idea of the kind of traction it has seen? We got to know about it 24 hours ago, and I'll be very honest with you, because of a statement that Vistara had put out. So when was it allowed, and is it too early to ask you the kind of reactions and traffic that you're seeing?
Firstly, Vande Bharat has been allowed for a few days now, and charter flights as well, since the beginning of this month. Of course, the numbers of Indians that are trying to get back into India is extremely large. So the restriction really has been on the ability of state governments to accept passengers or people back into the states, given quarantine rules and their ability to provide quarantine facilities. In terms of demand, of course, there is absolutely no paucity. All these flights are completely full. So it really depends on the states on their preparedness to quarantine all these people who are coming back. And therefore, the schedules and dates are being decided in conjunction with them, and permission obtained from them for each and every flight that's coming in.
Mr. Singh, I want to ask this question on behalf of all those that are watching this interview, are looking to come back home themselves, or are trying to repatriate loved ones from overseas. are the procedures for the private airlines the same that Air India is going to follow, whether it is, the downloading of the Arogya Setu app, whether it is a 7-day quarantining, the procedures that are going to be followed by the private carriers on board? Is it all the same?
There's a standard operating procedure which has been notified by the government, and all of us are following that same procedure. Of course, it differs in the sense that for every state, there are some quarantine rules which may differ slightly, but broadly the process is the same. I think, it's exactly the same SOP.
How are the airlines also making sure with the government that there won't be overcrowding at the airports? Once again, the point of this interview is also to understand, because there are a lot of apprehensions. No one wants to come back only to get COVID or have one of their loved ones get COVID. So is that how it's being done? The government is deciding the schedule, and then how are the private carriers among themselves deciding, okay, I'll take this flight or I'll take that flight? How is it working?
So, as far as Vande Bharat is concerned, the government puts out a list of flights that they want the private sector to operate. And then, we, between ourselves, we tell the government which flights we are able to operate. And the government then divides those flights between us. In terms of course, charters, that is for each airline to follow their own process. But in terms of safety, as we've said very often, there is no safer way to in terms of transportation than by air, because there are just so many precautions which are being taken, Nayantara, in terms of checks which are happening before these passengers board aircraft, to the process that's followed both at the airports and on board, in terms of the face masks, the face shields, the disinfectant fluid. And when they land here, again, the stringent checks which are being done, and the quarantine facilities which are being provided by the states. So I think this is as safe. Of course, nothing safer than just sitting at home. But if you need to travel, the safest way to do it is probably the stringent process that has been set up for air travel. I think nothing safer than that.
When we had done a webinar with the Honorable Civil Aviation Minister, and what he had said at that time was the private airlines also need to see if they want to be a part of Vande Bharat, because we are going to be very clear on the pricing, on the very fact that we cannot cause more distress to Indians stranded overseas. From what you are saying, the private carriers want to be a part of this mission, even if it means not making as much money as they're used to?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. We want to participate in this because this is a national effort to bring Indians back. There are, of course, commercial implications, and in terms of charters and such things, there's free pricing. But as far as Vande Bharat itself is concerned, of course, we will follow whatever the government decides. In terms of, government has chosen to set higher fares on Vande Bharat for markets where they probably presume that the passengers can afford it. For example, if you look at the fares to the US or fares back from the US, they are significantly higher than the average fares that Air India would normally get. But I think it's a function of the government deciding, where affordability is an issue and where it is not.
So how is it working? Because, it's pretty clear, and you yourself said that Air India is subsidizing, let's say, flights from the Gulf with what's happening in the United States, where it's 1 lakh rupees, right? Incidentally, for business class tickets, I understand it's $3,500 a seat coming in from the US. But having said that, what does it mean for the private carriers? Because you don't have private carriers really flying to the United States. You have to have the wide-bodied aircraft as well. So what does this mean for the airlines, which were anyway locked down, are now being allowed to fly, albeit in a partial manner? What is it going to mean for the health of the airlines? Because you're not going to be allowed to make money. Are you flying at losses?
Well, in any case, what we are doing is when we fly at Vande Bharat rates, it's pretty much a break-even sort of a situation. So we are not losing a lot of money. In some cases, we may lose some marginal amount of money. But like I said, it's national service. So we will happily do some of it. Much as today we are also flying immigrants, these migrants. A lot of the state governments are approaching us and saying, can you please help us fly migrants from one place to the other? And we are doing it sometimes at discount, sometimes without cost. So some of this is part of our process and part of our duty. So we are happy to do it. I think all private carriers are happy to participate because in any case, this is not a significant part of the business. I mean, the larger part, of course, is the scheduled flying that we are doing and also the charter flights that we are all increasingly doing now.
So can you give us a sense, since we have you here, what India can't afford is, of course, the grounding and the crash of yet another airline. Pardon my bad puns over there, but, we really can't. We have seen governments come out with direct bailouts for airlines overseas. Look what Germany's done for Lufthansa. Look what the Donald Trump administration's done in the United States. Look at Singapore Airlines. India has chosen not to do that. I don't know if there's going to be yet another stimulus measure, but at the same time, the private carriers have also decided to give out the discounted seats, to leave the math aside in national interest. How long can this carry on for? Is it going to result, do you foresee maybe closure of Indian airlines?
Well, I certainly hope not. I certainly hope the government can still find some way to support Indian carriers. I think there is an even larger issue, and that is that if you look at our region and all the airlines in the Middle East as well as the Far East, all of those airlines have been strongly funded by their respective governments. And as things start to open up, we will increasingly compete with these airlines. For example, when you fly to Dubai or to Abu Dhabi or to Doha, you compete with the carriers there. Those guys have got huge amounts of money from their government, billions of dollars, and therefore are in a position to discount fares and put a lot of pressure on the Indian carriers. Same for airlines in Singapore and Hong Kong and so on. So I think we need to think about that. And as we look forward to fulfilling our ambition of Atmanirbhar Bharat and trying to create a global passenger hub within our country, we really need to see that we get a level playing field and that the country provides a level playing field to its carriers, because we have this wonderful opportunity where we have a really strong domestic market, which we can leverage to create a base, finally, a hub in our own country. But if we are to constantly, put pressure on our carriers, have high taxation and not support them, when competing carriers are being supported by their governments, it becomes tougher to do. So we do hope that the government at least will provide us policy support and hopefully some financial support as well, so that we can compete with all these carriers and actually try and ensure that Indian aviation is at the center of global aviation in the years to come.
So let's actually hope for that. But Mr. Ajay Singh, just a quick word as far as the domestic flights go. We have seen the images, the airports are certainly busy. The government is trying to make sure that there is no overcrowding of airports. All of you have also done a great job in ensuring that the aircraft are indeed COVID-free. But one of the biggest problems you have also been facing is that your staff, your pilots, your crew needs to be quarantined. There have also been some very sad instances of crew members catching COVID-19. With all of you now also entering Vande Bharat, is there enough capacity? Do you all have enough crew members? Are we finally going to see coach sharing become a reality because of this problem?
Well, it could, but in terms of quarantining of crew members, we have suggested some alternative approaches to government to take a look at. I think in fact it's good that we are detecting passengers who are COVID positive. It's because of the stringent checks that we are doing as passengers are boarding aircraft and deboarding aircraft that we are able to detect some positive cases that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. So I think that at this time, there is some pressure because of the quarantining of crew. But I think if we can come up with sensible policies, for example, the cockpit crew, they are completely removed from where the passengers are, and supposing there's a passenger in the last few rows who's been found to be COVID positive. It shouldn't necessarily mean that the cockpit crew is quarantined for 14 days. So we have proposed some steps to the government, and we hope the government will take a look.
I'm going to make this final question before I have to actually go into a short commercial break, and I'm going to make it about pricing. Are we going to see for the international flights a repatriation, what we've seen for the domestic flights? For example, Mr. Ajay Singh, and it's only fair because of the surge in demand. I get the market dynamics. We have seen in certain cases people trying to fly domestically and crazy high tariffs. People have gone, they've been putting up those messages on social media about how a one-way ticket can be as high as 30,000, 40,000 rupees. Whereas, from the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we were told there is an upper ceiling. So can you clarify for us how this disconnect is actually taking place? And is that also going to then apply for international flights? Is it, for example, maybe those that have premium seating or business class seating where you're seeing those kind of pricing?
Oh, absolutely. I think there is a fare band which the government of India has given, and everybody is scrupulously following that fare band. I think the numbers that you're talking about really relate to business class seats. So that's where there is no fare band. So then, of course, the airlines are free to charge what they will. But in terms of the bulk of the flying, which is on economy seats, those are controlled by the band that the government has given. And in fact, those bands are extremely reasonable. I mean, if you look at flying from Delhi to Mumbai, the highest fare is probably about 11,000 rupees, which is actually pretty low. So it starts from somewhere around 3,500, goes to about 11,000 rupees. So it's a very reasonable band. We respect that the government needed to do that because of surge pricing possibilities and so on. But I think you need to remember also that most aircrafts, most airlines have more than 2/3 of their fleet on the ground, which need to be paid for. So at some point of time, we'll have to enable airlines to make some more money to pay for those aircraft for all those fixed costs in the absence of government assistance.
And okay, so the price surge, the high tariffs in domestic aircraft is only for the business class tickets, the premium class tickets, and all of that. Ajay Singh, you also have strict regulations when it comes to, for example, no food on board. For your international flights, how are the private carriers going to grapple with that? How can people not be without food for so many hours? Are there going to be changes in the luggage, for example? If people are wrapping up and packing up and moving their whole lives back to India because they've lost a job or a visa or whatever it is, are there going to be changes in rules? Are we seeing evolution of at least the rules and regulations on that front?
I think this whole focus on contactless travel is probably here to stay. If you look at these web check-ins that have been attempted in India, today 99% of people are checking in through the web. So there are no lines for check-in, etc. In terms of baggage drop, also there is a new contactless sort of process. All of this is extremely efficient for post-COVID days as well. In terms of international travel, of course, we have to make adjustments for that, and they will be made.
Ajay Singh, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for being so candid. There's private airlines being allowed to repatriate Indians from overseas. You've heard it from the top boss of SpiceJet when it comes to pricing, private charters, schedules, all of that. And with that, Ajay Singh, thank you once again for being a part of ET Now.